What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another week of the Great Lakes Outdoors podcast. We have Trav with us today. Trav,
what's going on, guys?
Yeah, that's you haven't been on in a while, Trav.
No, I think the last time I was on was
before goose season.
Point Mule.
Was it that long ago?
It's been a minute. You never let me come on, so I just gotta take when I can get it.
Well, that's for a reason, though.
I don't got a voice for radio, so it's more of the face, I think, is what it is. So I'll just stick to the face stuff, and then you'll just stick to behind the scenes, So that's what I think we'll keep doing.
That's debatable, but yeah, we'll go with it.
We'll discuss it. We'll
discuss it after the podcast is all done. But no, just kind of a intro before we start the podcast with our guest. We're going to be interviewing Connor from Great Lakes Guided Outdoors. Get it, Guided Outdoors, not Great Lakes Outdoors, Guided Outdoors. With turkey season coming around within about a month, Trav? I think it is.
Yeah,
a little over a month.
I think we're at a month. A couple days ago. I think it's first part of April. I think it kicks off in Michigan here.
Yeah, so. It's super soon. Well, no, it's April 20th is for us. I believe it is, unless there's some different tags. Obviously, I mean, I don't know anything really besides our area, but no, I mean, super excited about the podcast. I started doing some turkey preparation today, actually. And that's what me and you were just kind of talking about. I drove out into the field and set the camera out, and I said, I'm gonna walk down this tree line and see if I see any scratching or, because they usually roost right on this ridge. So I said, I'll see if there's any scratching or just tracks or whatever. And lo and behold, there was a shed laying right in the middle of the field.
Beautiful looking shed too. Like chocolate rack, it seemed like. And
it was super weird because when I seen it, I was like, oh man, that looks super old. And then I lifted it up and it literally looked like it dropped this morning almost.
Yeah, it looked like it didn't have any chew marks on it. I mean, it just looked like an older deer,
Yeah, it was super weird. I mean, it was, I don't know, with all the miles that I've walked this year, and to just drive up to set up a camera for turkey season and walk 40 yards past the truck and then come across a shed like that. It's not my biggest by any means, but it's got the most character that of a shed that I've found. Yeah. So I don't know. Pretty cool though. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Pretty awesome. I mean, with how many miles I've walked this year and found one half of a deadhead, I'm very jealous. So we'll just leave it at that.
Well, it's funny because Ben said the same thing, that he's jealous. And I told Ben, I was like, listen, man, it's karma for tricking me, man.
Trick,
yeah, with his fake sheds from his buddy up from the deer ranch.
Yeah,
I think I walked 10 miles the next day after he sent that, and all my deer. Well, I told
him yeah, Kyle was out looking the other day. He's like, dude, that's not even it's a real shed, but he's like, that's from a farm. I'm like, oh fuck, I feel so bad.
Yeah, dude, I was walking and. Obviously, and it's surprising with all the deer that I have on camera this year. I haven't found anything really. I mean, I found the one set, which was absolutely awesome. I mean, I don't even think it's my big one, but I never thought I'd be hunting a property where 150-inch deer wasn't my big one out there.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you've been blessed with some very nice genetics and deer over there. So it's just. Those deer are so smart. It's getting out. It's going to be the issue of getting on them, and the properties that you have.
Yeah. So. I mean, which, like I said before, we've talked about it. Year after year, I'll learn more and more about the property and the patterns, I guess you want to say, of the deer. But it's one of those properties too where you just never know what you're going to see, what's going to come out of that woods. I mean, the big deer that we've been. That I have been seeing. I don't think I have a picture of him since September or maybe even August. And for him to come up out of nowhere and show himself, is like I said, you just never know what you're going to be finding out there.
Yeah. Yeah, just got to put on the miles. And for your case, step out of the truck and walk 40 feet in front of you. But,
Yeah, no kidding.
well, I don't know if you saw, my dad found like 3 more sheds today. I'm like, geez, oh, Pete, that dude's found, I would say, 20, 30 sheds this year.
I'll tell you what, all those sheds that your dad has found this year top the 3 sheds that I found, even though probably all of his sheds would make up 1.5 of mine.
Yep.
But just the fact that you can find like the smaller ones, I feel like that's almost a bigger trophy than the big ones.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's walking miles a day for work and stuff. So, I mean, he's in there in the woods the right time of year, and he finds them, from years and years of looking for sheds. So it's crazy.
I mean, just to find like a small fork or a spike or whatever it is that he's finding, it's just like those are the hardest ones to find.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but when we were looking for sheds back when we were in college, we were walking this fence row, and we were on our hands and knees, and I think I was in front of you. Remember, I found that little, like, it was like a 2-inch spike or something like that.
Yep.
And the only reason why I found it because I was on my hands and knees crawling under brush, and I'm like, oh, there's a shed. Right.
We definitely have some stories from shed hunting back in the college days. That's for sure.
Yeah. No injuries involved, but
yeah, right. Besides you,
we'll save that for a separate podcast.
You getting blood clots, Bert's almost cutting his finger off. Yeah, there's no injuries at all. Mm-mm. But no, I like I said, with turkey season coming up, our guest tonight, without saying his name just yet,
you already said his name.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, so with Connor coming on tonight, I'm looking forward to talking and picking his brain about the turkeys. Every year it seems like there's more and more stuff or information or incline of populations, and definitely looking forward to it. That's for sure. I mean, we've been trying to get him on for a while now, and schedules just don't always meet up with how busy he is and how busy we are. And I don't know, super excited about this one. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. I've heard so much about him. Actually, to be chat with him, pick his brain a little bit. It'd be nice to, put a voice to the name and face. So.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess we'll jump right into it then.
All right.
Sounds good. We just wanted to take this moment to have our sponsors recognized. Our first sponsor of tonight's podcast is Migra Ammunition. And me and Trav have been super blessed to be a part of Migra for a few years now, with the original stack loads coming out with their turkey loads and being an ambassador for their turkey loads this year. I mean, Trav, I don't know if you shot them yet, but I am super excited to see how they do, and I can't talk highly enough about their waterfowl loads.
Yeah, I mean, if there's half as good as their waterfowl loads, I'll be ecstatic, because their waterfowl loads this year, we're knocking birds dead. I'm very excited to see what the turkey loads do here, and especially shooting TSS for the first time. So yeah, I mean, those guys over at Migra with their double stack loads, for whether it be for turkey or waterfowl hunting, I can't say enough about them. The hospitality that we get from those guys over there, absolutely amazing. Our second sponsor of the podcast is GK Calls, Michigan-based company. Trav, you just started running them this past year. I've been running them for a few years now. And, same thing, GK calls, World Championship calls. It has helped my game, or our hunting scenarios in general. Unbelievable. Like, whether it be their goose or duck calls. And Glenn over there with GK calls has absolutely been amazing to us. I mean, we just kind of got a part of their team last year, correct? Yep. This was our first full year running their calls. So under their umbrella. So yeah, Glenn and that team has really taken us under their wing, and we appreciate them trusting us to be a part of that company. Yeah, so. Can't thank Glenn enough. I mean, and can't talk highly enough on their calls. Like I said, I mean, I've been running their calls even before we teamed up with them, and just the difference in just the sound and everything. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just an absolute amazing call, and I can't thank them guys enough. But we'll get right back to the episode.
What's going on, everybody? We are here. Me and Trav are with Connor Gough with Great Lakes Guided Outdoors. Connor, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, your busy schedule, to talk to us tonight. How's it been?
Hey, man, I am excited to be here. I'm glad we could line it out in both of our busy schedules. Really, it seems like we all burn the midnight oil and utilize every hour of the day from sun up to sundown. And then there's always a lot of stuff to be done before bed. Sometimes bed's 10 o'clock, but more times than not, it seems like it's midnight or later. And then up early, rocking and rolling. But I'm definitely glad we could find a time to make it happen.
We've been trying to since probably September. So finally to get the timing down and get it all scheduled out, like me and Trav were just talking, I'm super excited, especially with turkey season coming up, and kind of pick your brain a little bit about turkeys with how good you guys do north of us here. I guess for those people that don't know who you are, which I don't know how they don't know who you are, would you be able to kind of just tell everybody who you are and the outfitter or guy that you guys are running up there?
Yeah, no problem at all, man. It's been a long time since we've been able to talk on here. We did a podcast. Shoot, it's been how long you think? Over a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
And obviously we link up every once in a while at trade shows or hunt or fish together from time to time when we can make it work. But as far as the guiding and outfitting side of things goes, like Kyle already mentioned, we have Great Lakes Guided Outdoors in Michigan. We do mostly turkey hunting and waterfowl hunting in the spring and fall. Typically we start up in April and run to the first week of June, turkey hunting. At this point, we've got 3 different camp locations now, one in West Branch, one in Big Rapids, and one in Adrian. So we got the lower peninsula pretty well covered up, but there's obviously a lot more areas to turkey hunt than just that. We're pretty fortunate in the state of Michigan to have the turkey population that we do. I think there's a lot of things that definitely culminate to make that possible, which we will go over as the show goes on. But when I'm not in Michigan, I do spend the rest of the year still guiding or chartering other places, like Kyle mentioned as well. I'm down in Florida right now, charter fishing for a few months. Weather's typically a little bit cooler at home right now than what it sounds like it's been, but it's always a good change of pace to get down here in the Florida sunshine, hang out at the beach, spend some time on the boat, catching some big fish offshore, big sharks, big snapper, and all sorts of good stuff there. Get to meet lots of cool people. And then in the wintertime, usually spend a few months guiding either in Kansas, Oklahoma, sometimes a little bit in Texas, and even have done Alaska as well, doing the sea-duck thing with Jeremy. But doesn't matter what time of year it is, our foot's always on the gas all the way to the floor. So it is hard to keep up if you're not up to speed with us.
No, that is for sure. I mean, it's hard to even just have a outside life from hunting or fishing, whatever. And obviously for you, with all the hunting that you do, whether it be for waterfowl or for turkeys, that fishing aspect's got to be a good change of pace, and just the view alone's got to be just a good thing to see, different from the field or the woods in general.
Yeah, man. And honestly, I've grown up fishing from a very, very young age, right? Like you start fishing just, from a pond bank with a bobber or a panther martin or something simple. Mm-hmm. You're happy to catch bluegills tickled pink as a young kid with your family, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever, or friends. Or any or all the above. And obviously as you grow and get more opportunities, it started as trips to different rivers or different lakes, just outside of town, and then hitting the big lakes, that we're blessed to have at home, the Great Lakes. Doesn't matter what side of the state, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, Superior, Erie, even Ontario. And then, through college, I actually traveled and fished competitively on a varsity team at Adrian College there. And so from there, it's just like, it's a snowball effect, right? You're always doing more, but even though you do more, you're still hungry for more. So it's like when you can get in a new environment altogether and then start saltwater fishing, oh my gosh, it's an incredible experience. And obviously the fishing is what people come down here for, but when you can make it, or sorry, if you can add another dimension to that, just as far as the personal relations side goes, that it's more than just fishing, and you're really giving somebody a full experience by being in the boat with you. You really get to bond with people in a special way that a lot of jobs don't let you do. So that's probably my favorite with all of it. Not only is the fishing good, but it's, the sky's the limit with what you're going to actually talk about in a boat with somebody when you're out at sea, 50 miles offshore all day long with somebody you've never met before, right? It's crazy.
It's got to be an unbelievable. I mean, like you said, 50 miles. I mean, for us around here, that's unheard of, obviously.
You'd end up in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, especially if you're coming over here to the Great Lakes, we're damn near sinking the boat like last time. But yeah, it's something like that down there. Like you said, open up a new door, new people. I mean, just the conversation alone has got to be a crazy thing from person to person, whether it be, from your turkey hunts or your waterfowl hunts or your fishing trips. But, with turkey season coming up soon, very soon, before we even know it, you got to be itching even to get out of Florida with how nice the weather's got to be down there and get your butt back up here for turkey season.
Yeah, man, I agree 100%. It's hard for me to be down here in that regard when, like you said, turkey season's soon. I guess for me, my mind shifts to more the population management and habitat management side of things more so than even the hunting. For me, I mean, I've obviously killed my fair share of turkeys. At this point, I mean, I rarely even pull the trigger on a turkey anymore because it's not about the killing of the bird for me. It's more so about the quality of the experience, and not just the quality, but the longevity of the sport. And so I always say, as much of a killer as you have to be considered a good outfitter, or be giving people good experiences in the woods and getting what they want. I always say you need to be 2 or 3 times or even more so of a conservationist. And so that's where, I want to be back in turkey season soon, but I'm like, man, I'm already lining up, the things, equipment and whatnot, and people that are going to help tie together the property management side of things when I get back to town, or even that's going on before I'm even back. But, it only makes matters all the more difficult when I'm down here and all these southern states are opening up. People are killing turkeys down here. And it's like, man, it is right around the corner. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I keep on telling everybody, and there's a lot of people that are sending me videos already of birds strutting already. And I personally cannot wait. You talk about property management and stuff. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of stuff about population of turkeys going up and down, fluctuating, increasing, decreasing. And obviously, I want to say it was the southern states that, some of the guys are like, man, I don't even know where half of my turkeys went. Do you guys do a lot of predator control up by you guys to help that population out? Or if you guys do, how much has it increased your guys' population up there?
Yeah, we really do. And it's a hard thing to put in perspective just because of the vast area that we have to cover, because a lot of reasons, really. When you're in these areas so much, you want to be able to distribute your hunting pressure for more ways than just one. You don't want to be hunting the same properties over and over again, because if you don't kill a turkey right away, he's going to be smarter if you try and go back and hunt him again. So we try and hunt him as little as possible. And then 2, when you do start killing turkeys places, which fortunately we do kill them pretty regularly, you don't want to kill them all, right? So I mean, you need to keep an eye on that population there. So just going down that route, when you've got that much ground and distributing hunting pressure that much, it's just saying a lot of different populations of turkeys spread out across, multiple different counties, really. So when you're looking at something that big, you don't just have to manage one property. Now all of a sudden you got to manage hundreds of properties. So like if you have good predator management on one property, that's close to town, but you got somewhere 15 miles outside of town, you're not even, managing the same predator. So you have to do the same practice at all the places. And the hard thing with predation is, it is always a constant threat to a turkey, right?
Mm-hmm.
We hunt them 30 or 45 days a year, or whatever the case may be, depending on what state you're in, somewhere in that range. Don't quote me on that, but roughly.
Right.
But these turkeys are being hunted the other 330 days by other animals, right? Birds of prey and coyotes and raccoons and, countless other things that, I think a lot of people think turkeys just all of a sudden are there at the beginning of season again. And, it's just magic, but really they got a lot of factors working against them. So just on the predation front, as far as management goes, a lot of these studies that are going on now with raccoons and coyotes, especially, they're saying that, every time you go in and say you kill 5 coyotes off a property and 20 raccoons. Well, if you kill them at the right time, right before nesting, I would say is typically your best success. You're never going to kill them all, obviously, but the more you can kill right before nesting, the better off you'll be. But these populations of raccoons and coyotes especially, they're saying they actually can sense how many have been killed, and they try and produce the same amount, if not more, no matter how many you kill, by that next calendar year. So I always say every coyote or raccoon that I do kill is one that's not going to raid a nest or not going to kill a turkey or eat a turkey or whatever. However, if you don't continually do that every single year, if you just do it to one property one year and then forget about it and don't come back for 5 years, well, there was 3 or 4 years there that the population really wasn't helped at all. The initial year that you did it, sure, you probably saw a little bit better nesting success and less turkeys being killed throughout the next few months. But as the year went on, more and more raccoons, were populated, or more coyotes were created that next litter year or whatever. And next thing you know, you're right back in the same spot. So that's where it really is a lot of work to juggle that many properties to make sure that there's not turkeys just being killed left and right, not only by us, but also by nature's predators.
For sure. I mean, and I actually have heard of that as well. With the repopulation, I think it was, I forget who said it, but the coyotes sound off and they know which one's calling or whatever it may be. But the next litter, if one's missing, they're going to try to repopulate that exact number, like you were saying. I don't know, absolutely insane that they can even do something like that. One. 2, with the fur trade being so down or getting money back, I feel like there used to be so many more predator hunters or trappers per se compared to nowadays, where you're not getting anything for pelts or why do it if you're not getting anything from it?
Sure. And on that front, I mean, I don't disagree at all as far as the price of furs goes. I mean, yeah, I can't think of anybody that's made a living off of trapping or the fur trade, right, in our lifetime.
Right.
But really, I mean, that's not been a major thing really in the last 40 to 50 years even. And just historically, a turkey population, we'll just say in the state of Michigan, a lot of places didn't really have turkeys through those time frames, even when trapping was at an all-time high, to where there's been projects to release turkeys places, through the 50s and 60s or so, 70s, to really create the populations that we have today. So even then, I mean, sure, they did a lot more trapping way back when, and maybe it even helped the growth of the initial turkeys that were placed in these areas, but there wasn't, nearly the amount of birds then that there even is today. So I guess it's kind of just nature probably trying to limit things out, right? Like you said, it's crazy that animals are able to sense that and respond to it. But at the same time, we got to remember, we're an external force acting on nature, trying to control things that God put there, right? So right. It's hard to shift populations that are that large.
Yeah, no, I 100% understand that. It's, I don't know. The whole thing, like you were just saying, it's just mind-boggling sometimes if you really just break it down like you just did, and it's nuts, absolutely nuts.
Right, and that's just the icing on the cake. I mean, when I try and wrap my head around or try and verbalize what we actually do, I mean, I'm not going to be able to put it out there in words. It's just the scale of how big things are. I mean, it's a I don't know, 60 or 80 mile radius, in our camps at this point. 30, well, probably diameter, I guess I would say, probably 30, 40 miles each way from camp we're hunting. And so it's like, it's a lot of ground that you got to cover and a lot of work. It's like every single day you got to be doing something, and it still feels like it's not enough.
Right. Because Trav, like, I know your dad anyway, up in like the northwestern part of Michigan. I mean, he does a lot of hunting for coyotes, but not so much coons. I mean, have you guys seen a influx of population in your turkeys up in that neck of the woods?
I mean, I would say this past year, turkeys were down a little bit. We didn't see the big flocks that we normally had seen in years past, but I mean, and then that did something to do with the with the coyote amount of coyotes they killed up there. Because I think this past 2 years ago, they run them with dogs, and between a couple groups, they killed 40, and the year before that, they killed 80. So whether that has a little bit of correlation to that or not, or just like what Connor was saying, the fluctuation of it, it's hard to tell on that.
It's, yeah, no, 100%. I mean, and even, kind of switching off gears off of the predator aspect of it all. Big question I have for you, Connor, is you're down in Florida right now. And this is like a huge turn, I guess, from that. But you're down in Florida. When you get back, which I don't know the date, when are you going to start scouting for turkeys? I mean, I'm sure you're obviously going to stay down there for as long as you can, because why wouldn't you enjoy the weather while you got it? But I mean, when is your time to scout? I mean, how much time are you giving yourself there?
Usually I try and give myself 10 days to 2 weeks or so to get back and get prepped up. At this point, I sort of look at our season as trying to find the birds for the next group of hunters, right? So at this point, it's typically 4 to 8 hunters coming at a time. So we're trying to find enough spots for that group of 4 to 8 hunters in their 3-day window. And then, starting to lean towards day 2 and 3 of their hunt, we're looking for where the next group's going to hunt. So, you can only do so much driving around and actually physically scouting. That's going to do you a lot of good, 2 weeks ahead of time, because stuff changes so much.
Right.
So at this point, I mean, we're very blessed to be able to hunt a lot of the same properties that we have for, better part of a decade or even over a decade, a lot of them, to where, because we have managed the population so well, you get to hunt those places because the turkeys are still there, just the same number or more as the previous year. And, typically we're out scouting around these areas so much, turkeys move around a little bit, or you find a new pocket of birds somewhere, whatever, that you end up acquiring some new properties as well. So that's just, like I said, I mean, really the management of pressure is so big that just trying to figure out where people are going to be hunting, through those first couple weeks of season, that might push some birds around a little bit. But, the first, like I said, 10 to 14 days, it's a lot of getting cell cameras set up in places that, we know we're going to hunt, maybe once a week, over the course of the season, where there's birds regularly, just again, from knowing those areas in the past that they typically will frequent. Funnels that they like to travel through, or areas that they'll typically roost in, or whatever the case may be, field edges that they'll strut on in the mornings, whatnot. Typically those are really good areas, especially the ones that are far from the lodge. If I can get a camera on them and not have to drive down there every single day and look, you might not see everything, but they're a very, very useful tool to be able to know what's going on when you're not around.
Them cell cameras are a God's blessing right there. I'll tell you that. To be able to not drive and spook the birds out of a field. I mean, it is so nice to be able to do that. And, people think that it's just used for deer hunting and whatnot. It's such a useful tool for turkeys coming out of roost, or, sometimes you obviously can't get around to each property in the morning or try to roost the birds. It's like you said, it's such a useful tool for that.
Yeah, I mean, turkey hunting, I've even used them for waterfowl hunting, right? Like if you get the right pond, I wouldn't probably use it on a field. You can't see quite far enough as far as waterfowl hunting, just since they typically aren't landing in the same exact spot every day. But, duck ponds or cattle ponds or whatever, swamps. I've got some really cool trail cam pictures of ducks coming in and landing in those ponds or flooded timber holes or whatever. That's, again, if you can't see it from the road and don't have a drone handy or whatever, just the amount of gas you can save, I mean, like I said, I mean, a lot of us scouting, I mean, I got 4 or 5, 6 trucks on the road every day scouting. Everybody's doing 150 to 300 miles in a day scouting morning and evening. That's a lot of gas. So if I can even take 1 or 2 of those trucks off the road, each day, I mean, that's saving me a couple $100 in fuel right there.
Right. No, that's, and so for when you are scouting, when are you, like, what kind of weather are you looking for? What kind of time of day are you looking for? Obviously it's weather depending, or, sunny, cloudy, rainy. Obviously that all factors into it, but when is your favorite time to scout for turkeys?
Man, my favorite time to scout for turkeys is when it's like spitting rain a little bit, overcast. They're almost always going to be out in the fields. So those are the best days, not only in the morning, when they get off the roost, but throughout the day. That seems like they stay out in the fields longer than when it's just a clear day. They might go out and strut first thing in the morning on a clear day, but after an hour, 2 hours goes by, typically they're going to dip back into some cover. But those misty, rainy type days, it seems like they're out and about and real active, which in the springtime we tend to get a good bit of weather like that. The hardest thing is with scouting and with hunting as regularly, especially as we do, I can't cherry pick days of the week to make our hunts happen, right? It's like when the days are scheduled that our customers are coming in to hunt, that's when we got to put out results. So it's like you might have had 5 days in a row of sunshine, and then their first day of their hunt is going to be a downpour. It's like, well, the scouting that we've done for the last 5 days or being in and around these birds so much, you just have to be prepared for everything to change. So at that point, it kind of goes to a little bit of an educated guess, what you think that the birds are going to do, because chances are they're not going to do what they did the 5 days prior.
Right.
So that's where, you can say, what's your favorite conditions to scout in, or what's your favorite conditions to hunt in. But when you can really become that versatile player where you've had years and years of experience of watching these weather changes and how the birds respond to them, that's where you're really going to become a more well-rounded turkey hunter. I have a hunt that sticks out vividly in my mind from, probably 4, maybe 5, 6 years ago. I can't remember. It's been a little while now. But hunter gets in camp the night before, and we look at the weather for the morning, and it's the first morning of the hunt, obviously. And I'm talking like some of the worst spring weather I've ever seen in Michigan, like 30, 40 mile an hour wind, constant rain, and even like a little bit of thunder and lightning was potentially in the forecast. We didn't see it right in the morning, fortunately, but it was so bad to where he said, we got a couple more days of the hunt. I don't really want to hunt in the morning, but I was like, man, like I got him all hyped up. I was like, I got this spot. If you trust me, it's gonna be good. All we have to do is walk across this big section through the rain, and as soon as we get there, I'll pop up a blind and we'll be at least comfortable for the morning. And I kid you not, man, we left the lodge that morning, and I must have cut like 6 or 8 trees out of the road with a saw just to get out. And once we got out of the trail of the lodge, smooth sailing other than the rain. But I'll be darned if we didn't make that walk across the field. And I'm talking, I got a video of it. I can't remember. It was 4 or 5 longbeards, literally right off the roost, like within the first 20, 30 minutes of daylight, come running in. And it was like so rainy and windy, they couldn't even strut because their fans were blowing down. And at the decoys, dancing around, kicking that thing. And like, they were so mad and fighting so much, like you couldn't even get a shot for like a couple minutes because they were just bobbing around, on each other so tight around the decoy. But ended up making a great shot, done the first morning, and like I said, just the worst weather I've ever seen. But it's like sometimes, when you gamble like that, it can pay off. So it just goes to show that you do your homework, and that was just one of those spots I had a good feeling about, and it paid off.
I will say the key word of that whole sentence there is sometimes it pays off, because a lot of the times it does not. I'll tell you that right now.
What, you've been in some terrible weather and it didn't pay off?
More than I can count, that's for sure.
No.
That's another question I got is, are you guys roosting your birds, or you kind of just scouting from the road? I mean, what's your kind of outlook on it all? Like, you got a hunter in camp. Are you roosting them the night before and then jumping on that bird?
Man, the best thing I can say is, like, we always try and be as minimally as minimally invasive as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Not only in the hunting, but even in the scouting, right? So that goes to say, like, I try to not call at birds really at all with turkey calls or owl calls or anything crazy. I mean, you're not going to really booger a bird with an owl or a crow call or anything, trying to get him pinned down on the roost. Like, if you have to know exactly where he's at the night before.
Right.
But typically, most of our scouting is done with the cell cams and driving around on the road, just glassing. The least time I got to spend on foot walking in and around properties, the better off it is. I mean, it goes to say, though, you do want to be familiar with your properties as far as how their terrain is laid out, because the more familiar you are there, the better equipped you're going to be going in on those birds that way. But I mean, I'm talking, if we're going in on a property, we're going in to kill a turkey. And I say that confidently. Like, I've got great guys now that are helping me with the scouting and the guiding, that, if we're going in somewhere, we're going to kill a turkey. That's the only way to it. And the thing is if it doesn't work out, the way we drew it up in our head, I'm going to say, hey, it's not worth boogering this bird anymore. We're going to back out and go get on another one, because we got plenty more options to jump to. And that does a lot of things. You're going to a new bird that hasn't been screwed with, right? So that's increasing your odds right off the get-go. And then you're not teaching that turkey that it didn't work out on anymore. You're not chasing him. You're not pushing him. Nothing, as far as education or going in his memory bank that's going to turn him away from being responsive to calls or decoys or any of our hunting styles. So it's like, that's the biggest thing, that when the scouting is done right, you don't have to worry so much about, not having faith in what your plan is supposed to be. Now, every turkey's got a different temperament and personality, so it's like, you don't know necessarily how everyone's going to react to your calling or your decoys until you get in there sometimes. But as far as the scouting goes, you're going to know where he's at and what he does every day, to where you at least know you're going to be in the right spot.
And I do want to touch base on turkeys, or not turkeys. Obviously, we're talking about turkeys, but the decoy setups here in a minute. I feel like a lot of people try to push it too much, get too close to the roost, calling too much calling while they're on the roost. Don't know when to call, when not to call. How close are you guys getting kind of to the roost area?
I'll be the first one to admit, if I had to pick, my weakest skill set in turkey hunting, it would be killing them right off the roost. I won't lie to you. More and more my turkeys are killed, later in the morning, after 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then even midday or afternoon. But we do kill a few off the roost. I typically will say, I try not to get within 100 yards of them if I can help it. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're in, more of a deciduous type forest where you might not have the top cover. If you're in and around a bunch of pines and cedar trees, to where, that turkey at 100 or 200 yards might still be able to see you, when you sit down. He might not see you when you get in there in the dark, but when the sun comes up, and next thing you know, he's looking right at you. Next thing you know, he's going to be gobbling, but he's not gobbling because he's fired up. He's gobbling because he's laughing at you, right? And they'll sit on that limb and gobble and gobble and gobble and never fly down. And next thing you know, it's 8 o'clock, and you're like, yeah, we might be better off just standing up, walking out, and going to breakfast, because this isn't going anywhere good.
Yeah, it's.
But definitely, you might call to let them know you're there. But again, I think a lot of calling anymore, in not only turkey hunting, but other things as well. It's almost like people just call to keep themselves occupied. And it's like, it is very, very easy to overcall, and it's not a necessary thing to call a lot.
That's, and you touched on it before too, even like just knowing the landscape of the field or the property that you're hunting. I lack on that big time. I need to do better of a job of, you know, seeing where they're pitching down from the roost, or doing your like kind of scouting before, or seeing where they're roosted at and this and that. But I feel like it almost goes back to even where your waterfowl hunters want to throw 20 turkey decoys out into a field and want to keep calling at them and yelling at them through the goose call. It's the same way, you know, goes hand in hand almost sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, or a lot of times, you know, less can be more.
Right. And not a lot of people understand that, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, what I'm getting at, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many guys that think that you got to keep on hammering every time they're gobbling. You got to sound back at them. Like, for me personally, I don't know how you are or the people you have. You got to kind of keep the bird guessing on where you're at. You know, kind of keep their interest or pique their interest on trying to find you, or, you know, locate you, or locate where your decoys are at, I guess, you know.
Right, 100%. You know, a lot of times people call so much they've got you figured out before they even get in to check out the situation. And it's like, if they can get a beat on you, and like you said, they're not curious anymore.
Right.
Why would they come in and investigate?
Right. I mean, how many decoys are you guys typically running on a hunt?
Sometimes 0, sometimes 6 or 8. You know, not very often do we use that many, but I would say the magic number is usually 2 or 3. I like to typically have some sort of Jake decoy out. All the decoys they use anymore are all Dave Smith. So I really like the breeding pair or mating pair that they have. That one's very, very good at spurring a reaction from the bird that sees that decoy actually in the act of breeding a hen. But it is always a good thing to have, you know, the upright hen or the feeding or leading hen, just in case you have a live hen come in. It'll keep them preoccupied for a little while. You know, they might either be curious towards it, or the more dominant hens obviously are like, hey, I'm the boss hen in this block. And, you know, you think you're going to be up here stunting your stuff, and they're not okay with it. You know, those hens will stick around a decoy for 5-10 minutes. I've seen them come in and start preening themselves around the decoys, lay down, actually sleep. You know, I've had turkeys come in and sleep for 40 minutes or an hour while I sit somewhere. And sometimes it's cool just to sit and watch a live turkey that close to you, right? And they have no idea you're there. But not only is it cool to watch, but I couldn't tell you how many times I've had a turkey hung up at 80 to 120 yards. And, you know, he's gobbling, strutting back and forth, just dancing back and forth. And you're like, oh my gosh, you know, it ain't going to happen. You're like, there's no way this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden, God sends a hen. And I've had the hens just about walk over my legs on their way to the decoys. And next thing you know, they're purring, clucking, you know, hitting the decoy with their wings, or kicking them, pecking them, whatever. You know, I think my hen decoys take more of a beating than the Jakes do from the toms sometimes.
100%.
And next thing you know, it's like a light switch hits, and that tom is now, you know, sometimes it's a dead run, but other times they might take their time still coming in. But either way, he ain't hung up anymore, and they'll come in, and it ends to be their demise.
And it's such a good feeling, because it's almost like, man, that hen knows I'm here, and that hen wants that tom to get killed just to leave her alone for a little while. Like, it's I don't know, there's something about it. But you guys use DSDs, no?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but when we started using the DSDs, it was a complete different reaction for the birds, or different even like demeanor when they come in, whether it be hens, jakes, or toms. You know, it's so, those decoys I can't talk highly enough about. They're, I don't know, absolutely incredible. The paint scheme, everything. I mean, obviously you don't need them, but I don't know. It's incredible what they do to a turkey.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that they are so ultra realistic that you're able to fool a turkey so well, and it just continues to keep their attention for so long. The biggest reason that I've found it helpful for us, I mean, not only does it help you create better content, right? If that turkey's going to put on a really, really good show for you, and that's ultimately what I enjoy. I love just watching the turkey interact. But if I have, say, an 8-year-old that's never shot a turkey before, or even an adult that's never shot a turkey before, it keeps the turkey's attention focused on the decoy, and it allows us to maybe get away with some moving, to get adjusted that we might not be able to do if you're just trying to call one up with no decoys. And it also just keeps them there for a longer amount of time, so you can wait for the right opportunity for them to move, or get comfortable to take a shot, or calm their nerves for a little while, or whatever. So it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I can't find a bad thing to say about the decoys other than you got to carry them in and out.
that is one thing. I mean, are you guys hunting mostly blinds though, or no? Kind of
we really try and cater to who we're hunting with, right? I mean, I get a lot of guys, especially from down south, that they're like, I never killed a turkey out of a blind before, and I don't intend on starting today. And I'm like, all right, enough said. We'll leave it here. And I totally understand that, right? I mean, I like being up close and personal, and that might not be my favorite style. But again, a lot of the people that are hunting with us are younger kids, especially, or new turkey hunters. And if I can create an experience that's comfortable for somebody, you get to sit in a camp chair, have your gun in a gun rest, and you're able to move around a little bit more, even while the turkey's still on the limb, or whatever the case may be. Comfort is the name of the game there. And when you're able to conceal some movement, it's a win-win.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people that we've been dealing with even is not using their phones in the morning.
The light.
Yeah, oh my God, man. I had a guy last year, a close buddy of mine, first time turkey hunting, so obviously I'll give him a little bit of a leeway. I tell him before we get out there, the birds gonna be roosted right here. I mean, like we got to be quiet, no light, no nothing. And so we're walking down this tree line, no blind or anything. I said, man, I don't know if these are picker bushes or not, and I'm sure not willing to find out the hard way. I'll tell you that. And he's like, oh, do you want me to put my headlight on? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead, put your headlight on. And he starts to move his hand up towards his head to hit the light. And I'm like, no, dude, are you that crazy to put your headlight on after I just told you those birds are roosted like just over 100 yards away? Like, no. And that's got to be such a, to stay, level headed about every hunt that you go on, knowing, maybe that is the first hunt that they go on, or first turkey hunt that they're going on. Like I said, just stay level headed with all that. I mean, it's got to be tough at some points.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely times that it can seem frustrating, right? Like you put your heart and soul into creating an experience like this, and you don't ever want anything to go wrong. But it also teaches you, so much patience. And so it doesn't really matter if it's turkey hunting or any of the guiding or outfitting I do. I can just say right now with the fishing that I'm doing in Florida, it's like, I know I get ticked off if, I have a backlash in a reel or tangles or something in my line. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I almost have a disconnect down here to where like I'm in the boat and I'm like, I just, kind of understand like that's just what I'm here to do. If somebody tangles something, I'm a fixer. Hand it to me, I'll fix it. You guys have a good time.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely
so when somebody does something with a light like that, they just don't know better, and so it's up to you in that moment for them to just say, hey, just remind them the turkeys are still right there. We got to keep quiet. Move slowly, whatever. And if it takes a little bit longer to investigate whether they're pickers or not in the dark, no big deal. Like, we got in here with plenty of time. If something went wrong, we can, still have a few minutes to spare and adjust. And it's not the end of the world. And you know what? Even if you get in there and you booger something, like I said, it's easier just to go to something different, start over, and use it as a coachable or teaching moment. And hopefully it doesn't happen again.
How many times are you guys actually jumping? Do you guys kind of run and gun kind of scenario? Or are you kind of sitting at a spot for a while?
It really depends on the time of the year. I would say earlier in the season, especially, and then like later in the year, if that makes sense. Like earlier in the year, it's a little colder. The birds are slower to move. We might sit a little bit longer, hour and a half to 3 hour sits. Our afternoon sits typically end up being a little bit longer. And then later in the year when it starts getting hot, we're going to sit a little bit longer in those areas because birds might not be quite as patterned. They're going to come through there at some point, just maybe not in that same 5-minute window that they had been earlier in the spring or whatever. And then, birds are typically a little more fired up, seems like through most of May, the first week of May to end of May especially.
Mm-hmm.
So typically in that point, the running and gunning definitely works a little bit better. So, I'm a pretty impatient person, and I always will struggle with that. I'll freely admit it. I hate sitting in one spot for that long. But at the same time, I've killed a lot of turkeys at that hour mark or even 2 hour mark just because we did sit there, and it's like, that's where you got to figure out. And here's the other side of it. I've sat a lot of places an hour or 2 hours and not kill a turkey,
right,
or 4 hours or 5 hours, so it's just one of those things, the frequency of going when you're in the woods almost every single day, you start to figure out like, all right, this is maybe worth my while sitting here a little bit. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'll sit an hour and then I'll leave and get a trail cam notification 5 minutes later. And I'm like, well, I'll be darned. I should have sat there 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you're never going to always be right. And you have to be okay with that. But you just have to recognize, where maybe a little bit of a mistake was and hopefully learn from it.
No, that's 100%. And it's such a kick in the butt, but there's always a learning point in every single hunt, every situation that you're in, but you're going to have to be willing to understand what that learning point is. With you guys hunting the blinds, have you guys ever hunted blinds like directly in the middle of fields at all?
It typically works pretty well.
Okay, so you guys do it a lot then.
I try to avoid it, right? I mean, obviously, if you can get to a field edge and get the blind brushed in a little bit, it definitely doesn't hurt to do that. But I've also taken A-frames even and thrown them in the middle of the field and shot turkeys out of an A-frame because I think a grass edge looks a little bit more natural than a pop-up blind. But, it really doesn't matter one way or another. It doesn't seem like turkeys are too fazed by a blind just popping up. But that's just what I've seen. I mean, I've heard a lot of places, guys are like, oh, we can never get away with that. I'm like, well, have you tried it?
Well, that's the only reason why I asked that, because I've personally have never tried it. I've wanted to, but it's, for us, it's only hunting weekends, and it's like, I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk the morning hunt. I don't want to, push my luck with anything. Like I said, I want to try it, but just kind of never have. Don't know why.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, being in the middle of a field, you might have a little bit better visibility, right? Like you're typically maybe up on a little bit of a rise, or that bowl that you're in, you can see a lot more of the field than being up in a corner or an edge, just depending on how the terrain sets up. But, maybe they do strut that same ridge line every day that's 150 yards off, the wood line, and you're like, well, I mean, they might pull to it from the ridge, but they also might be a stubborn turkey and just walk that ridge line again and pay you no mind. Right. So it's like, sometimes it's worth it, because you're like, well, say I set the wood line, where I was comfortable, and it didn't work out. Well, you could have set up top and it might not have worked out, but you at least would have been in the spot that he was in.
And I feel like that all goes kind of back to like what we've talked about too, like the pressure of the birds. I mean, like, sure, if the birds are very pressured, obviously something different is going to, change their mentality with it all. And it even goes back to like me even scouting before season, like trying to find, maybe there's a meadow in the middle of the woods that they're pitching down into, which, I need to do a better job at doing. And I say that every single year, but just never do. I mean, like you said at the very beginning, with being as busy as we are, it's hard to be everywhere at once. I don't know. I just, like I said, I'd never tried the middle, and I don't know. It's iffy kind of thing for me.
Sure. Do you see more success in that, like the first day? Like you go out there that morning, you set up in the middle of the field, kill a bird? Or do you see it more in the fact of you put it out there a week, you don't hunt that field for a while, and you go back out there and you kill a bird? Where do you see more success at with that?
Well, I mean, they're obviously going to be more comfortable if they've been able to walk past the blind 15 times and nothing, no negative repercussion happened. I would agree 100% with that, but a lot of times we're throwing up a tent and hunting it, and then we're tearing it down, and it's not staying anywhere where they're going to see it. So, I mean, just from our perspective, I mean, more times than not, it's going up that day, getting hunted, and then coming back down. So they're not seeing it more than when they hunt. And so, again, say for some reason, we shoot at a turkey and miss it out of a blind. Well, the next time he might be a little blind shy, right?
Right. Yeah, just going back to pressure. And obviously me knowing who you guys have working underneath you or helping you out, you got some absolute dogs working underneath you. Let me tell you that. I mean, it's some top-notch guys that are like killer on the call. I mean, how much does that kind of affect it all?
I'll be the first to say I don't ever brag about my turkey calling capabilities. I'm proficient, but I'm not, world champion by any means. So I would say definitely being in the right spot is far more important than exactly knowing how to call, especially the mouth call or something. I mean, there's so many different hand calls, box call or slate call or push button yelper. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you can get some sort of good quality turkey sound, no matter what the call is. Those are pretty simple to learn. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing is just scouting and being in the right spot. So right. I won't tell you that it's not helpful if you know what to call or when to call, right? I mean, I've been in the woods a lot of times, seeing turkeys start getting fired up to a certain call sequence or sound that, I know how to tell the turkey that and then instantly get a response from them. It's like, okay, well, because I saw that so many times and then did it worked. Sometimes it doesn't work, but more times than not it does. That's, again, the more well-rounded of a turkey hunter you can become, the more efficient you're going to be in the woods.
Trav, do you have any questions or anything? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah, I guess one of my biggest, I've always been fascinated by like the guiding, because like Kyle and I, we both hunt a lot. We both have a passion for wildlife, but then with a guide, I feel like it's 10 times that, because that's what you're doing for a living. On the turkey hunting side, you talked about like population management. You're hunting this wide range. And when you get later in the year, you've had so many hunters come through. Are you managing that property? Like, okay, we've killed 2 birds off this property. We're not going back to that because we know there's this amount of birds there.
Yeah.
Or are you going that to the wind?
Yeah, I think that's really, really an awesome question, honestly. It kind of almost goes back to the blind question where you're talking about turkeys seeing things different times or managing your pressure. Not only do you not want to kill too many turkeys off of a property, but I also don't want to go in myself. I don't want to go in with clients, or I don't want to send any of my guides in somewhere that's been beat to death and turkey hunted either by us or by other people. So that's where not only am I, observing how much we're hunting areas, but we're also looking at other hunting pressure around as well. When you're scouting around, you're kind of taking note if you see trucks parked places or see people walking out with a turkey or whatever, because I'll be the first to tell you there's probably not anybody that knows our turkeys and the populations we have better than we do. And I'm talking down to the exact number of hens, the exact number of jakes, and the exact number of toms every single year. And so that's kind of where I can look at a property, or even a lot of these areas that we might hunt, properties that touch one another, that they're the same turkeys, and we can say, well, this one's got 2 toms on it, 10 jakes, and 15 hens. We might hunt that and kill 1 tom off of it, maybe. Typically if there's that few turkeys, I might just let it with that many jakes coming in. We might say screw it and just let that sit for a year and then hunt it the next year, and hopefully 8 or 9 of those jakes make it through, and the next thing you know, you've got 7 to 10 toms instead of 2. Plus the jakes that are upcoming that next spring. And then you start looking at properties that have 3 to 5 or 7 to 15 toms or more on a piece, and you're like, okay, well, this is going to be one of those properties that we might hunt it 4 or 5 times this season, and it's okay to take 1 or 2 toms off of it each time, to where there was 15 toms there, you killed 5, you didn't hardly put a dent in anything. You're not really hurting the population to do that. Because in that regard, there's probably just as many jakes running around as well. But when the hunting, you get down to the nitty gritty of that, and especially with as long of a season as we have going into June, I think a lot of people, that's the first question that they ask me when they're booking. They're like, well, the turkeys, they got to be about done by then, or, they've been over hunted at that point or whatever. And it's like, man, honestly, I get to the end of the season there and it's like, we still got like 30 properties we didn't even hunt yet. So it's like, it's a good problem to have, right? But it's like, I go in there and we actually just dropped a video on our YouTube of a June turkey hunt, and I'm talking, these jokers came in just fired up, right straight to the decoy, right off the limb. And it's like, they didn't do that because they'd been hunted 15 times, right? I kid you not, I didn't hunt those turkeys all season. Nobody did. So it was like, they're like, who is this joker rolling up on our block, this morning? And they came down and they were looking for a fight, right? So it's like, that ultimately boils down to, just good overall management for the longevity, and not just the season, but the long term. So, we want to have success from day one of season all the way to the last day, but we also want to have success the rest of the calendar year and years to come.
What kind of is your limit though, like per property, on like birds harvested, to like say, to tell yourself like, I'm not going back there? Obviously it depends on the jakes and stuff too.
Yeah, like I said, it really just depends. Every year fluctuates a little bit, but I knock on wood, I can't think of a property that, since we've started hunting it, has had less birds on it than when we started hunting it, if that makes sense. And it really just comes down to not killing too much and managing the habitat and the predators. And so it's like, when I can see somewhere that, has 1 to 2 turkeys on it, and it's like, or I can even say this, there's places that I've gotten told no hunting, right? Like say I'm scouting, I saw this one property, I'm talking, this is a real life story. There was 6 or 7 toms, I think, that literally would roost in the trees on this, there were cedar trees right around this raised food plot on the edge of this farmer's cornfield. And they would pitch into that little food plot perfect every single morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, like textbook. This is going to be awesome. Great footage. I'm going to get them flying out of the tree into the decoy spread, and we're going to kill them right off the limb. It's going to be incredible. I go talk to the guy, and he's like, man, I kid you not, he listed off like 8 or 10 family members, his cousin, this nephew, that grandkid, yada, 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 and I'm like, oh, so you guys are just going to kill them all. And I didn't say that. I just, I said, okay, well, I appreciate your time, and best of luck this spring. But I kid you not, there hasn't been a turkey on that property since then, and that was 4 years ago. Wow. So I don't think people really recognize, the long-term damage you can have on a population if you don't manage it every single year. It only takes 1 year to screw it up. So that was a property that had, 7 or 8 toms on it. I'm talking, when I see somewhere that's only got 1 or 2, I'm like, it might not be worth hunting at all this year, and maybe, like I said, maybe times get a little tricky where birds have been pushed around other places or whatever, might go in and kill 1, but I'm definitely not going to kill them all.
Yeah. I'm kind of, limited almost like 2 a property right now. Cause I'll say probably about 7-8 years ago now. There's one property in particular that DNR dropped some birds off at. And, the population is absolutely like just blown up in that general vicinity. I don't care if I even have 10 toms, an X amount of jakes. I just feel like, 2 birds, 2 toms, a tom and a jake, whatever it may be. I almost don't even want to push my luck on the future, I guess. You know what I mean? Just like the story that you just said. I don't know. It's
yeah, but at some point, we do need to recognize as well that, we as hunters and conservationists, we do actually get to manage that population. So sometimes when it starts to get that large and kind of out of control, it's not a bad thing to go in and thin them out a little bit, because they're, at that point, they're starting to get a little out of hand.
It's one of those things for us around here anyway. Like I grew up going up north, in hunting, to, obviously like around your area, and to see the population grow over year or after year after year after year around us the way that it became, it's such a nice thing to see because we're not used to that. We're not used to it around here. So, like I said, it's just one of those things where I don't want to push my luck and hurt the population at the same time.
Yeah, and turkeys are really they're for as fragile of a species as they are, they're pretty resilient. Which it sounds kind of contradictory to say that.
Right.
There's a lot of factors that affect their reproduction success. But I mean, once a turkey's an adult and they're in numbers like that, try and sneak up and run down a turkey, right? Like you can't do it. It's impossible, right? Because they're so alert. You're going to hear the putt and they're going to take off running or flying, and they're typically going to get away. I mean, you even watch videos of mountain lions and stuff that are like apex predators that struggle to catch turkeys, right? So it's like very rarely, sometimes just out of them being dumb, crossing the road, getting hit by cars or, whatever. There's some that are going to get killed somehow or eaten or whatever, but not a lot. Once they reach adulthood, the biggest mortality rate is when they're either before they hatch or the first few months of their life or first year of their life. So once they're adults and there's that many of them, I mean, you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, no, I mean that is a solid point. I mean, personally, I have, a couple more questions, but Trav, do you have any other questions?
Yeah. See, I go back to thinking, back when I started, learning from my dad, calling and stuff like that with the box call, mouth call, that kind of thing. For someone that's just starting out, that doesn't really know the ropes. When you look for a property that you want to pick up, what are you looking for? What are your steps in saying this is going to be turkey? Besides seeing the turkeys itself, what are you looking for in your ideal turkey property?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say step one's making sure there's turkeys on.
Yeah, the turkeys.
But after that, I mean, I'm not too picky. I mean, I'll kill somebody's turkeys in their backyard. I'll kill turkeys in a cornfield, a bean field, a hay field, a swamp, wherever the turkeys are at, where they're regular. I'll make it happen. So, at that point, again, it kind of just is up to you to become well-rounded, to adapt to the terrain. And really that's what makes it enjoyable for me. I always say I've never killed a turkey the same way twice. That boils down to the calling, the hunting style, and the hunting location, right? I mean, I may have killed turkeys 2 different years on the same property with people, but chances are they didn't come to the decoys the same exact way. Or I've been able to learn how other factors even affect turkeys. I can think of one time offhand right now. I was actually with Jake Curtis. I don't know if you know Jake Curtis, but Jake was there filming with me. He's a phenomenal guy. But we had these 2 guys from Ohio. Well, 3 guys. Jake's from Ohio too. 2 clients from Ohio and Jake. And we got this turkey fired up, and he's behind me on the neighboring property. There's like about 80 yards of woods and then an open field, and I could just hear this turkey gobbling, spitting, and drumming right on this 80-yard strip of woods, just on the backside of it. He was just pacing back and forth, gobbling, wouldn't break the trees. But as he's coming in, he had actually used how hard the wind was blowing to pinpoint the sound. It was like blowing 15 or 20 miles an hour at about a 45-degree angle to where we were sitting. And that turkey literally worked like that wind cone of where the sound blew. And he actually worked like right upwind directly to us through the woods. So it's like, I had never seen a turkey do that before, but it's very interesting that, he utilized that weather the way that it was to find where the calling was coming from, instead of just poking through the trees into the field where we were at, where the decoys were. And so I just remember turning and looking over my shoulder, and I was like, well, not going to kill that one, because man, there was no way we were going to turn around and get on him to where he was at in the woods without blowing that turkey out. And fortunately, we ended up killing a different turkey in front of us in the field. But that just goes to show that, they're going to adapt to the scenario and to the weather that you're hunting every single day. I could have gone and hunted that turkey the day before when it was calm, and he probably would have just ran right through the woods and came running out into that field and straight to the decoys, just like the year before when I'd killed a double right off the tree in the morning, and they just came popping right out, no problem, straight to the decoys. But it just goes to show that, they're a very, very versatile animal. And I always say they're the smartest dumb bird in the woods. They do dumb things like peck chrome on a truck, but then they'll do something like that and just blow your mind. You're like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
What
I know that.
out of curiosity though, like you said, sometimes you guys don't use decoys, and sometimes you do. I mean, what are the benefits of using decoys compared to not? I mean, do you see? I mean, obviously decoys help a ton. But what are some of the negative downfalls of not using them, and what are some of the pros of not using a decoy?
I mean, the only time I'm not, like, absolutely not ever going to use a decoy is, a turkey that's been shot at multiple times over a decoy spread, or, every once in a while you get a turkey that's not dominant whatsoever, right? Like, he's almost scared of a decoy.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, I mean, those turkeys are very, very hard to hunt. It's almost turns into a deer hunt where you just got to sit there and hope that he walks by within gun range, because even if he walks through at 70 yards and you try and call at him, his red flags are going off in his brain, and chances are he's going to flap his wings back and take off running. So more times than not, I mean, I try to avoid situations like that or having to go hunt a bird like that. If anything, that's going to be one that I might go try and hunt and fool another way to just learn. But typically I'm not going to try and take a client in on a bird like that where the success rate is not real high.
Mm-hmm.
But other factors to consider, in areas where, there might be a little gang of like 3 or 5 jakes running around. A lot of times you'll see jakes chase off grown toms, just because there's strength in numbers. They will beat up on those toms, run them off of their hens. And so, if you go into an area like that and you start throwing jake decoys around, you typically are doing more harm than good, because that tom associates that jake decoy with an ass whooping, right? So It's like he sees that thing and you're like, oh man, I set the Sunday out there with the cherry on top, and I thought that he was going to come in all curious or come in all hot and bothered, when really you just shot yourself in the foot. So really that just boils down to, like I said, knowing your birds and scouting. And I get a kick out of all these guys that are like, oh, you can kill a turkey in such and such state, you can kill a turkey anywhere or whatever. And I'm like, not to rain on your parade or like, to be too derogatory, but you guys are idiots, because you're literally going out and just beating these turkeys to death every single day, day in and day out, chasing them to the roost and trying to be the first one to do the roost and finding the bird that's gobbling and yelping your head off to them. And it's like the turkeys never get a break and actually get to live their life and interact as turkeys. And that's really why we're as successful as we are, is because the turkey decoys are taking the place of real turkeys. So it's like they're, seeing these turkeys show up and they're like, well, if this were a live turkey here, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in and run them off of my hens, or this turkey's breeding one of my hens or whatever, and they react. They aren't fearful. So it's like when you start educating a turkey that much and creating the stress and the fear that, there's always a person chasing them, if you can eliminate that and actually let them, act as they're supposed to in nature, that's why I said our scouting just has to be as minimally invasive as possible, because you want to be able to take a step back and watch what they do. And then, you're the one reacting to what they do instead of the opposite.
Right. So I'm sure you've heard, or, the pecking order for turkey hunting wise, like, you shoot that boss tom and then I don't know, people are saying that it mixes up the whole, dynamic of the flock, I guess, in the woods. Do you guys see anything with that? I mean, say you shoot one opening morning, you got enough birds where you're going back the next day, or 2 or 3 days later on. I mean, do you guys see any difference in all of that?
Yeah, I think that that's a major, major thing to consider in a lot of the places, not only for your hunting success, but also for breeding success. So the it's actually a hierarchy, right? So, the boss Tom is the pinnacle of that hierarchy. He runs every aspect of it. He puts everybody in their place that needs it. He breeds who he wants to, when he wants to. And if anybody gets in his way, he's going to let them know about it. So, yeah, say you shoot that boss Tom, whatever the guy that's running the show. I've heard a lot of times it takes 7 to 14 days for them to reestablish that hierarchy and figure out the new pecking order. So it may complicate hunting a little bit, but the one thing that it will do is it's going to throw a major stick in the spokes for their breeding, right? So they're more concerned with figuring out who the boss Tom is than who's actually breeding the hen anymore. So when these hens actually become fertile and need to be bred, the Toms might miss that window because they're too caught up running around with each other trying to figure out who's the boss. So that's another thing that with tight breeding windows, that is going to be detrimental to actually the hens being bred. But that's why they try and make the seasons when they do, is they try and push them back far enough that most of the breeding or some of the breeding's been done before season even starts.
And I mean, for a lot of people, obviously, no one ever really knows what the boss Tom and they say that the same thing even with the hens. You really never know what time you're shooting out of the flock that's like the boss Tom and what it's going to do to that entire flock. It's just,
sure.
I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot the last couple of years. Opening morning, we got that one Tom running out. I mean, was that the boss Tom? Is it going to mess up everything that's going on? I mean, I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, turkeys can't talk English, so it's like you can't be like, hey, are you the boss Tom?
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those things. I mean, we can't stop hunting them completely, and that's where you just have to trust that nature's going to balance itself. Nature's going to find its balance. The biggest thing is that we're not going to go in there and wipe out all the Toms so that nobody can breed anything whatsoever.
Right. Another question I have for you with guiding and getting so many people through the lodge. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys are 99% success rate?
Yeah, I mean, we have 100% shot opportunity. I kind of quit advertising success rate because ultimately I can't vouch for somebody's proficiency with a shotgun or preparedness for, showing up in camp. I can be a big proponent for people being educated and prepared and comfortable, but I can only, put the turkey in front of you, or my guys can only put the turkey in front of you. We can't shoot it for you.
Right.
So, we did 117 turkeys killed last year for 120 hunters. The 3 hunters that didn't kill each had 2 or 3 opportunities that they either missed turkeys or something happened to where they boogered something. And I'm not ever going to ask a hunter to take a rushed shot or an unethical shot. Typically we'll say inside of 20 to 30 yards, no more than that. Go ahead.
Well, no, keep going, because it kind of leads into my next question.
Yeah. So that's where, I mean, like I said, we can't shoot the turkey for anybody, but that's where we're at with that. So, but that's, been 11 seasons with that going on.
So, I mean, with all of the clients, I mean, 117 birds killed is unbelievable. One, but, with obviously TSS getting as big as it is, and people, we just had a podcast 2 weeks ago, I think it was, where we talked about, all these people that are using TSS shot and shooting at birds that are 80, 50 yards away, whatever it is. I mean, one, you have to have people in the lodge that are wanting just, trigger happy, wanting to pull a trigger. I mean, do you think with, you're not killing every single bird at that distance, but the wound rate and, not harvesting that bird and people being that trigger happy is making the population bounce back and forth? Like I said, like, you can wound a bird, it dies a day later, say, from injury, obviously you'd never know. It's I don't know. I just think that TSS with the 80-yard shots it's there's too many people nowadays that are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think TSS is a good thing, right? Anytime you can be more ethical, it's always good. However, it's one of those things that it should be used in moderation. And this argument or discussion, the factor of moderation is going to be the distance. So it's like, just because you can potentially kill a turkey at 70 or 80 yards doesn't always mean you should.
Right.
So to go back to what you said, I mean, with people being trigger happy, I can fortunately say, like, we are, as competent at, being in the woods with the birds as we are, that, we don't really necessarily have to worry about that trigger happiness, saying like, this is your only chance, shoot him when he's running by at 65 yards. That's never going to come out of my mouth to where we have to worry about, rushing a shot, taking or making a bad shot. But on the same token, it's like, you do get a lot of guys outside of just hunting with us. I'm just saying turkey hunters in general that are shooting them, like you said, over 50 yards, over 70 yards, whatever. To me, that kind of defeats the entire purpose of turkey hunting, right? It's like, at that point, I mean, it almost should just be legal to shoot them with a rifle. Like, you didn't.
I was just thinking the same thing.
You didn't decoy them. You didn't fool them. You didn't get to watch a show. You didn't get to feel them drum in your chest. You didn't get to, see them spitting all around the decoys. Nothing crazy. So it's like, at that point, the ethical side of things is kind of out the window. And it's like I said, just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. So TSS definitely has, lethal killing capabilities and kinetic energy to physically kill a turkey that far. Sure. It might hold a pattern that far, most of the time. But, the thing is you start looking at what the shot actually looks like. And, just in a 3-inch, 9-shot tungsten shell, you got over 900 pellets. So sure, say you got a 60-yard target or whatever, and you had whatever, 60% or 70% of your pellets. Well, 60% of 900's a lot, but 40% of 900's also a lot that's outside of that circle going all over the place. So now you got collateral damage, like you said, that might be hitting hands or other toms, or, you made a bad shot and now you got flyer pellets going at the tom you were trying to hit. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster. Like you said, you're going to end up having turkeys running off and dying, days or weeks later, that they're going to completely go to waste. And to me, it's almost a disrespect or a disservice to the turkey when you're trying to kill them like that.
100%. It's the thing, like last year where I took my sister out and we had a big old tom. I mean, it had to been 40 yards out. Sister's never shot a bird. I mean, you know my sister, like her first, it wasn't her first hunt, but her first time like that close, and visual sight. And, I wanted to say just try it, but as badly as I wanted to say that, it's like, let's take this as like a learning curve and just,
absolutely.
It's not all about just the kill during turkey hunting. It's more than just the kill.
And sometimes you've got to let the turkey win. And like you said, take a step back, learn from it. And then when you're able to roll that experience into the next one, where maybe you actually are successful, I mean, in my opinion, that is still success, right?
100%, yeah.
You learn something, but when you can actually physically get your hands on that turkey, the next time that happens, it just makes it all the sweeter.
No, 100%. And for me, with her just getting into it, it's almost like a learning curve for her, understanding the ranges or, when not to shoot, when to shoot. It's just, like I said before, you got to take everything and take take the positive out of everything and learn from it. Whether it be a bad thing or not, there's always a positive that you're learning from it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's going on, guys? I'm Dakota with Gator Decoys. So we're just going to give you a little brief overview of our company. So I made these awesome products called telescoping spinning wing decoy poles. In our company, they're called gator poles. So if you have a mojo or a lucky duck, whatever it may be, and you need to get over 4 foot tall, check them out. Also, for you guys hunting up north, where it gets super cold and you're tired of beating your poles in the ground, check out our new bases that come out just for you guys. You can thread them into the ground with an impact and attach our poles on top, and you're good to go. Decoys also should be coming out soon this year, so we'll keep you up to date on our website and Instagram, gatordecoys.com.
Trav, you got anything else?
No, you keep going. I'm good.
One question I have, you went to the NWTF, right?
Yep.
How was that, man? I'm so jealous. I've been wanting to go for years now. We got invited by Migra this past year. A little too late, but I mean, how was that?
Yeah, this would have been my second year at NWTF, and obviously I went the first time 2 years ago, and man, I was like, I'm not going to miss this one again, for not knowing about it up to that point. So definitely not a show that I miss going to at this point, and it's really just an all-around great experience, great networking opportunity. Tons of people, and the biggest thing is everybody's like-minded. You're all there for this same or similar reasons, and it's really just a great atmosphere to open up some good conversation, meeting some new faces, getting to see some old faces, and that's really ultimately the main goal, I would say. They've got lots of really good events and seminars that go on that you're able to learn a lot about turkeys and turkey hunting from people that have been doing it for a very, very long time. I can say I'm fortunate to be able to have learned as much as I have about turkey hunting, and I'm still learning, but learn as much as I have from people that have been doing it for a long time, just coming in and out of my camps. But when you can go to an event like this where, just imagine the amount of years of experience that, if you added everybody's up in that building, I mean, it would be just literally probably thousands of years
right.
of experience in different experiences in different places that, you're able to learn and then maybe apply a little bit of it back home. That's always really, really cool and enjoyable for me. So Nashville's a great setting. I've got some really, really great restaurants I enjoy, dining at while I'm in town. And then, I've made a lot of really good business connections while I've been in Nashville as well. As many times as I've been there, that, Nashville's typically like the party scene, like everybody goes to Broadway to drink, and, nothing against it. It's just not really my crowd.
There's more than that.
Yeah. So that's where I can say, I don't really think of Nashville, specifically for that. Yeah, sure, there's lots of great music opportunity, great entertainment. But man, if you can also dig in a little bit deeper into the personal networking side of things, you're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah, I feel like obviously with all the people there, I mean, you don't have to follow one person. Just take bits and pieces, and whatever works best for you out of those bits and pieces that you're taking from people, I mean, can make you that much better as a hunter in general.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%.
It's just, I don't know, super jealous. I am definitely going to try next year to go. And I'm definitely going to be contacting you pretty soon, because our close buddy, well, not close buddy, but Brad, you fitted him for
yeah, wild deer.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be contacting you for that, because I need something, because I'm going to be deaf before you know it, I tell you that.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things. If you don't take care of your hearing, it literally is causing permanent damage that is completely irreversible. And the thing is it's not irreversible for this year or next year. It's irreversible for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so that's where I can say, I did do a lot of damage to my ears, before I started protecting them. And now I will not hunt without them, because it's been such a game changer. I don't go to bed and my ears ring, before or when I lay down trying to go to bed anymore. It's like every night when I would hunt, after I hunted, I would literally lay there and it was just that high pitched,
yeah,
just obnoxious, and you're like, you got to do something to try and fix it, and there's really nothing you can do.
Right.
So being able to completely prevent that altogether. If I'm around loud noises without hearing protection, it reactivates that. But typically for me now, it goes away, within a day or two. And as long as I'm good about keeping my ears protected, it doesn't happen anymore. So that's just a phenomenal thing.
Well, just like Joe says, protect your ears, not your dick. You know what I mean? No.
Yeah, something like that.
Last question I have for you. Is there any hunt or spot or anything that you're looking forward to in this upcoming turkey season, or client or just guest in general?
Yeah, man. I mean, turkey season is probably my favorite. Out of all the things that I guide at this point, I always say if I could turkey hunt year round, I would.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, we know we already went over the fragility of turkey populations. We don't want to kill them all year, and that's
right.
That's not why I want to turkey hunt year round. I just appreciate the atmosphere of turkey camp more than anything, and watching the woods wake up in the spring. But definitely looking forward to a few things. I'm going to try and put together an Osceola hunt with one of my good buddies down here. One of my buddies' name's Matt. He guides Osceola hunts here in Florida. So as long as I can get the time off from running the boat, and he's still got the dates available, I'm probably going to skate down there here in the next couple weeks. And then, I always am very grateful to be able to share camp with a lot of the same guys year in and year out. I mean, we get to meet a lot of new people, which is awesome, but the groups that come back year in and year out, you really start to build an actual bond and relationship with that. You start to see them other times outside of turkey season, at different events, or they'll invite you places or whatever, and you kind of get to start writing a story with these people, and so that's really cool to me to be able to share camp in that regard.
No, that's yeah. And I've seen a quote the other day even, and I don't think a lot of hunters even realize it. You wish you'd breathe life back into these birds after you harvest them. I mean, turkey hunting is such more of a, we're used to waterfowl hunting, you shoot, 20, 30 birds, waterfowl hunting, or turkey hunting is such more of a just personal thing for me. And it seems the same way for you.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that. I've literally, I can just think now some turkeys that I've either called or stalked to where you end up, with your barrel beaded down on this bird, and they almost look at you with those sad puppy dog eyes because they're so close, and you fooled them so well that I've multiple times not killed the turkey in that situation, because it's I did what I needed to do, and he knew, he's like, I can't let this happen again, or I'm gonna be a goner. And it does make you appreciate the birds so much more when you can do that and have that history, and play the game with them like that.
No, that's for sure. Trav, before we wrap this up, Trav, do you have any other questions or anything?
Yeah, for your the guys that are coming in, are they mostly out-of-state hunters, or do you get a lot of in-state hunters as well?
I would say 90% of our turkey hunters in the spring, or maybe even higher, 95, 97%. I don't know. It's definitely over 90% of our hunters are out-of-staters. I get a few guys that typically they're guys that waterfowl hunt with us a bunch in the fall. Business clients, whatever the case may be, they might hunt with me 10, 15 times in the fall. And I don't know if they just like hanging out with me or if they actually want to shoot a turkey or what the deal is, but they're good to have in camp nonetheless. But typically that's more the case. It's more the relationship of getting to spend some time together in camp with myself and the guys, that I think that's the drawing factor, than more so than killing a Michigan turkey, because most guys in Michigan obviously have access to places to hunt or have the know-how. But we definitely do get a few every year that want to hunt with us for sure.
Like we said in the very beginning, Connor, I greatly appreciate your time. I know you are super busy with whether you're in Michigan or Oklahoma, Florida, wherever you're at. No one knows where you're at because you're bouncing around so much. So we greatly appreciate the time that you put in and I can't thank you enough. Is there? Do you want to shout out like your outfitter or Instagram handle, whatever it may be?
Sure, man. It's always a pleasure. I'm glad we could find the time to make it work. It's always tough to coordinate 2 or 3 different busy schedules, and obviously we made it happen tonight. If you guys do want to get a hold of me, I do try to be as available as possible. This time of year being offshore a lot, I don't have phone reception during the day, so if you don't get a hold of me, just leave me a message or shoot me a text, and I will get back to you as soon as I'm back to shore. My phone number is 989-387-0952. Personal social media is Michigan_Duckman. But all the business stuff is Great Lakes Guided Outdoors. So same thing on Instagram and Facebook, Great Lakes Guided Outdoors, the website, greatlakesguidedoutdoors.com. And also YouTube is rocking and rolling. We've got some really, really good videos up there. I've honestly been able to just take that step back and look at everything that's been posted up there over the last 4 to 6 months, I would say. A lot of it has been done by Connor Carlson. He does a bunch of our film work.
Amazing work. It seems like
it's a really cool thing to be able to look back and say, look at all these memories and experiences we've created. And I didn't even really recognize how much was up there until I saw all the videos just the other day. I'm like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So definitely tune in there. There's some really, really good stuff. If you want to dig in and have some turkey content and some goose hunting content to get you by until turkey season.
And you are on the roost. You made it official that you are on the roost, right?
With Joe?
Yeah, right? That's on the roost, no?
You know what? He did film a turkey hunt last year. Did it end up posted there?
I want to say it was on the roost.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to ask him. I'll shoot him a text when we're done with this. But you know what? He did come and film last year with one of his guys, Dylan Preckle. And Dylan's actually like 30 or 40 miles from me in Florida right now. I'm trying to link up with him while he's down here.
Well, that'd be awesome.
But Joe and Dylan flew in last May, right around the 18th or 20th, I think it was. And that would have been Joe's second year in Michigan. But I don't remember what I was doing. I was tied up when he hunted. He actually hunted with Connor Lausch and Oakley and Connor Carlson and Dylan. And they all somehow went out and found a place to hide and killed a turkey that afternoon. So I have not seen that footage. So I guess if it's on the roost, let me know. I'd love to tune in and watch it.
I'm almost like, I don't know. I don't even want to say a percentage, but I'm almost positive it is on there though.
Okay. Yeah, you might be right.
I don't know. I don't get that I'm right. Like I don't hear that enough to say that confidently. But yeah, I think it is. But like I said, Connor, cool. I really appreciate the time tonight. I really appreciate just everything. Wherever you're at, wherever you're traveling, safe travels for you. And, hopefully we talk to you soon. And if not, good luck this upcoming turkey season.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen. Hopefully, like you said, our paths will cross here shortly. Maybe we'll do some walleye fishing.
Hopefully we could talk Glenn into making some turkey calls.
Sounds good. Cool deal.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in this week. Until next time. See ya.
All right. Sounds good. See you guys.